My talk today is called An Ancient Gnosis for Today, and it is a brief survey of that body of knowledge, esoteric knowledge, called Theosophy, which means simply divine knowledge. Now, portions of this ancient theology, posited as the core of all religions, garnered from both the East and the West, and jealously guarded by a chain of adepts down through the ages, was unveiled towards the end of the 19th century by the Russian mystic Helena Blavatsky. Gary Lachman, an American writer on mysticism, has called her the mother of modern spirituality. The concerns of the day, as I say, at the end of the 19th century, still with us to some extent, particularly man's place in the universe and whether there is a God, were addressed in a very positive way by Blavatsky. The historian Nicholas Goodrick Clark observed that Theosophy located human destiny in an emanationist cosmology and anthropology derived from Neoplatonism and Oriental religions, which I thought very well put indeed. However, before I attempt to outline the basic tenets of the message, here are two essential statements which cannot be overemphasized. One, the first one, is "Come to the Secret Doctrine," which is the title of her main work. She says, without any hope of getting the final truth of existence from it, or with any idea other than seeing how far it may lead towards the truth, how far it may lead towards the truth. Indeed, she went on, studying any esoteric doctrine induces a very different mode of thinking, a carving out of new brain paths really, no less. It is a kind of yoga. As time goes on, a mental picture will form, each one in turn seeming to represent reality. It does not and must be discarded. One must break up the moulds of the mind, as it were, by pressing on with study, which presently will give rise to a larger and more beautiful picture. But that in turn can never represent the truth, but takes one further along the true path of knowing and gradual enlightenment. Now, the second point is that he who does not practice altruism, that is, unselfish concern for the welfare of others, can make no progress whatsoever towards what must be the goal of the seeker, which is a universal brotherhood and the redemption of man. Furthermore, no matter what one may study in Theosophy, in the doctrine itself, let the mind hold fast to the following ideas. The first one is, beneath the manifold world of our experience, there is a single reality, the source and cause of all that ever was, is, and is to be. This reality, the one supreme, beyond the range and reach of thought, means that all things, having issued from this one supreme, are themselves that supreme in their essential nature, they are themselves that supreme. You can get glimpses of this reality in great art and great music. And so one can say the whole is in the part. I want to repeat that because it's important. The whole of the universe and the whole of creation is in every part of it. And in that sense, again, you are that universe. Secondly, there is no dead matter. Every atom is alive. It cannot be otherwise, because every atom is fundamentally absolute being. Thirdly, man is a microcosm of the macrocosm. Fourthly, it can be expressed in what is called the great Hermetic axiom. As in the inner, so is the outer. As is the great, so is the small. As it is above, so it is below. Nothing is great, nothing is small, nothing is high, nothing is low in the divine economy. These last 2 points underline 3 characteristics of the universe in toto. As, first, a boundless plain, periodically the playground of numberless universes, incessantly manifesting and disappearing. And secondly, that of the law of correspondences, where the entire realm of nature, in all of its constituent levels of being, such as stars, planets, all the kingdoms of nature, every kingdom of nature, states of mind and body, etc., etc., are considered to be linked through a series of correspondences or analogies. And thirdly, ranks of hierarchies, so that every entity lives its life in the field or sphere of a greater being. That's such a basic and wonderful idea that I want to stress that. I must repeat this because it's extremely important. Every entity lives its life in the field or sphere of a greater being. That is, the teaching is that the whole universe is ruled by intelligent and semi-intelligent forces and powers. Forces and powers. That demiurgos, so to speak, is no personal deity. That is an imperfect extracosmic God, but an aggregate of the aforementioned hosts, in short, a series of graded beings, all of them part of an evolving cosmos. And you, again I repeat, are that universe. Hence we have the whole of cosmos, the whole of creation, living under and subject to several laws which are inviolate. First of all, you have the law of periodicity, or the doctrine of constant renewal, is another name for it. For example, day and night, waking and sleeping, birth and death. Inherent in this doctrine is the necessity for rebirth, reincarnation, and that everything proceeds in cycles, that is, a series of intervals that never end. Thus we have, and I repeat, and I think the prose is magnificent here, the universe in its entirety is the playground of numberless universes, incessantly manifesting and disappearing, each called the sparks of eternity and the sons of necessity. Each of these universes, again I repeat, called the sparks of eternity and the sons of necessity. The teaching is of the progressive development of everything, worlds as well as atoms, the progressive development of everything, and that this stupendous development has neither conceivable beginning or imaginable end. Which also always reminds me of the story from the Bhagavad Gita, the holy book of India, one of the holy books of India, in which the two armies are drawn up facing each other. Into the space between these two armies comes the chariot of Krishna, together with his acolyte Arjuna, the warrior. And Arjuna looks at his enemies, the opposition, and says in despair, I can't fight these people. I can recognize many friends and relatives amongst them. And with that he throws his bow down into the chariot and sits down with his head in his hands in despair. And Krishna turns to him and says these wonderful words. There never was a time when you or I did not exist. So strike and be not afraid. Now the point about this wonderful episode in the battle is that the two sides are really, it's an allegory. The two sides, the warrior's side and the enemy side, are really part of Arjuna's mental makeup. It's his mind, it's his good thoughts, and the enemy are his bad thoughts. That's why he could recognize them. That's the real meaning of the story. And the point I'm stressing is that he says, Krishna says to Arjuna, there never was a time when you or I did not exist. And neither you nor me or these. And so then, harking back to what I've just said about the cosmos, everything as well as atoms, there's a progressive development of everything in the universe, from the atom upwards. And that stupendous development has neither conceivable beginning or imaginable end. And furthermore, each universe stands in relation of an effect as regards its predecessor, and being a cause as regards its successor. These statements are so vital to understanding what the esoteric body of knowledge has to give to mankind. These are the kernel of the message to mankind. Each universe stands in relation of an effect as regards its predecessor, and being a cause as regards its successor. Then we have the law of adjustment, the doctrine of balance and harmony. Harmony and rhythm are fundamental aspects of what has been called the divine plan. And whenever it is disturbed, an adjustment must be made, that the disrupted equilibrium must be restored. This is the law of cause and effect. It is called the law of karma, which is a Sanskrit word meaning action. And as every other action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Here, in this context, it is stressed that every thought and act of whatever degree has an indelible effect on the universe, changing it for good or ill. Every thought and every act in the universe changes the universe for good or ill. I've already mentioned what is in effect the law of essential unity. That is, every entity lives its life in the field or sphere of a greater being, which can be termed the doctrine of the hierarchies. All beings are linked together because of a common bond or origin. Furthermore, we have the law of self-unfoldment, the urge which causes every entity to seek to express itself in accordance with its essential characteristics. Hence, the doctrine of essential identity. Finally, the law of motion. Nothing is isolated or static. Some force ever impels it onwards, ever seeking loftier status. This law holds not only for periods of activity, but also for periods of rest. Thus, we come to the doctrine of continuous change. In presenting these doctrines associated with the divine laws, you are placed en rapport, so to speak, with what has been called a great continent of thought, representing the wisdom of the ages, the heritage of the human race. This knowledge has been specially chosen and presented in a special way for the people of the 19th, 20th and, shall we say, the 21st century. To deal only with this particular solar system and man on this planet in particular. Although one must never forget, the secret doctrine teaches the progressive development of everything, worlds as well as atoms. And furthermore, the whole order of nature evinces a progressive march towards a higher life. There is design in the action of the seemingly blindest forces. There is design in the action of the seemingly blindest forces. Further, every spark, so to speak, of the divine ascends through all the degrees of intelligence, from mineral and plant, through animal to human, mounting the rungs of the hierarchical ladder of life. So, the whole cosmos is guided, controlled, and animated by an almost endless series of hierarchies of sentient beings, each having a mission to perform. And each one either was a man or prepares to become a man. If not in the present, than in a past or coming cycle. I don't think the knowledge has a more important thing to say than that. That's one of the key statements of the esoteric doctrine. Each one either was a man or prepares to become a man. If not in the present, then in a past or coming cycle. Even a cursory glance at the material establishes two main characteristics of the constitution of man and planet. But remember that everything of whatever degree or rank, from atom to universe, is alive. You must keep that in mind. And one must add that there is a cosmic storehouse where every thought and deed is recorded. Furthermore, every entity has its being in or is composed of a series of planes or subplanes of consciousness matter, and these are subsumed in greater planes. This is a key portion of the teaching, without which you cannot understand the cosmos at all, how it's built, how it's made. And there's a perfect correspondence between the structure, say, of planet and man, of every rank and state. All of these statements I'm making are critical in the sense that you cannot make any further progress without you grasp these fundamental issues. I repeat the last one. Every entity has its being in or is composed of a series of planes or subplanes of consciousness matter, and these are subsumed in greater planes. Now, very briefly here, because the subject is immense and takes a lot of study, what I'm going to try and outline is the progress of planets and man in what is called a particular day of Brahma. That is a particular time of existence of a particular solar system. Now what follows here is Hindu cosmology in its essence. And in a way, it bears, in many ways, very little connection at all with modern science and evolutionary ideas of science. There's very little connection between that. But I can only give you a very, very brief outline of it. As I say, what will follow will be the life circle of a man on the planet and what happens in the life circle of the planet itself, which has these beings on it. And the progress of the planet from one system to the next, where each is the progeny, remember, of its forerunner. Now, as I've just said, each solar system has a predecessor, and this solar system we are in now is the parent of the next one. So you get, first of all, a glimpse of successive solar systems appearing and disappearing. The material to be made of any one particular system is rebuilt from the material of its predecessor, and these building materials and entities are passed over in turn, stage after stage. So what we have in essence is this solar system has its life on 4 main planes of being. And you get what appears to be a very difficult and complex system where this planet, the one that we know, the only one we know, this physical planet, is one of 7 in the system. The other 6 are on the other 3 planes. When a solar system begins its life, it is built from materials of the former solar system, gradually, and it is built by the advanced entities of the last solar system and the higher hierarchies in stages. So perhaps you get what is known as Planet 1. That is built, and the entities have their lives and their life cycles on that planet. And then that fades away, or all the life goes from that planet to the next one, planet number 2. That has its existence, and its the entities on it proceed in a more advanced way, and then it goes on to planet 3, on the next plane down, and then it comes to this one, planet 4, or you can call him A, B, C, and D. This one is known as planet D, which is the one we know, which is what we would call the physical plane. The other planes, of course, are obviously invisible to us. And then we go through this cycle of our lives, life after life, for so long on this particular planet, and then again, this planet, the life on this planet is transferred to planet number 5, which is the plane above, then to planet number 6, and eventually to planet number 7. And planet number 7 is on the the most advanced of all the 4 planes that we're talking about. And here we have a complete cycle of the life of the entities in it and the life cycle of the solar system itself. And when that is finished, the whole of that system is in a more advanced spiritual state than it was at the beginning. And then the next cycle, the next day of Brahma, so to speak, many millions of years, starts again with a new system. I repeat, this is only the briefest of outlines, hopefully made to start you on the search for this fantastic and fascinating story behind the growth of worlds and the growth of the universe, the destiny of the universe, the destiny of the entities on the universe, and what they will achieve and what they do not achieve. And again, I stress the correspondence between the man and the entities and the planetary material itself. You might be able to grasp the fact in my somewhat basic and halting explanation of a kind that this process is continuous and is never ending, so that you get one solar system after another, one universe after another, more or less, living and dying and creating its successor. The life of man or any person or any entity follows the same corresponding ideas that a planet or a solar system does. This is the whole point. So when we come to the evolution of man, then we have a somewhat similar story. That man, every man, and for that matter every entity, has its existence on 7 planes, of which this one is the lowest, and the plane of matter, the one that we know. But there are another 6 planes, each plane with the subdivisions, which are too complicated to go into, and he has his being, and let's say every other entity, to some extent, depending how one state of evolution, as one evolves through the solar system, each plane, hopefully, comes into, each higher plane comes into a greater play, so to speak, hopefully. As I said before, one of the key ideas that each entity is evolving, and the goal of every entity is the human kingdom. And so it has to evolve through all of these planes in some degree or another. And so for a lower entity, most of the planes are not known to it. And in fact, for most of the population of the world today, the existence of other planes is unknown to them. They only know the physical plane. Whereas there are many other planes and subplanes. You get an idea of maybe that there are other planes when you dream, or whatever, something like that. So turning to the constitution of man, then you find again, as I have said a few moments ago, that man has 7 planes of consciousness, of which normally is only conscious of one. This one is the physical plane he's in, but there are others and many other subplanes. Now we turn very briefly to the constitution of man itself. As I have just said, man really exists on 7 main planes. Together, each main plane is divided into subplanes of consciousness matter of its own kind. Everything is alive. The first thing we learn about the constitution of man is that in essence, man has 2 portions to his constitution. The first portion, if you like, is the part of the one he knows. That is called the lower self, always spelled with a small s, the lower self. Now, this is the part of man which is mortal. The other half, so to speak, is the immortal part. So the thing you have to grasp immediately is that every person, every entity, every human being, and in essence also, as I've said, every entity has 2 portions. First of all, the mortal portion, which can be discarded. And then you have, astonishingly perhaps, an immortal part, the one that has never ceased to be. Now this is the self with a capital S, and as I said, I reiterate, it is immortal and is the deathless part of man, which has always existed. The other part is mortal and is replenished life after life. You get, it's really the lower personality. So your constitution is in two halves, which means that you have two minds. And of course nearly everyone on the planet has no idea of this. They think that the mind that they've got is the only one, but you have a higher mind which you can access through various disciplines. That is the immortal part. The other part has to reincarnate. It has to live, it has to die, it has to relive, but not the same personality, because each personality is built on what you've done in the former personalities. And so the immortal part of one's being, as I say, called self with a capital S, has three portions: spirit and its vehicle. Each part of any entity has a spirit part and a vehicle, a matter part. A higher mind, that's the immortal part, and then the mortal part is the lower mind, the emotions, the life force, which is called prana, the astral body and the physical body. You have actually a model body called the astral body and the physical body. And this chart will give a very brief, will give you a brief look at these principles, the English names and the Sanskrit names, and it will show you that you have what you call an individuality, which is the higher self, and a personality, which is the lower self. What cannot be overstressed is that each human being has to manage his own destiny. He is a force for good or evil. And so then you have a situation where a human being can be in one of three states. He can progress, or he can stand still, or he can regress. Now, if he regresses, the mortal portion of his constitution becomes more evil, if you like, more degenerate, and in extreme cases, or eventually, like an overripe rotten fruit, it drops away from the top portion, the immortal portion. The immortal portion, of course, has therefore to start again, so to speak, with a fresh set of personalities, one after the other, through millennia. If you stand still, it's sometimes the worst situation you can be in, because nothing happens and you just waste time and do nothing. But if you are progressing, then you gradually lose the lower personality in a positive way, which eventually becomes not needed. And so then eventually you get into the higher realms and the higher planes, the spiritual realms, and you live in those higher spiritual realms. And so you have to be aware of a progress of some kind, which should be a progress of some kind, in subsequent lives. Now we are told that every century an attempt is made to show the world that occultism, it's a word which means only that which is hidden. That's the true meaning of the word occultism. That which is hidden is no vain superstition. The door, we are told, will be opened wider with every new century. And we are also told that science is our best ally. So what is happening to support that these claims? Well, there's plenty happening. In 1905, for example, Einstein said space and time are one. However, Blavatsky had said the same thing nearly a quarter of a century before. Although the vast majority of scientists are materialistic, there are enough of them, all in the first rank incidentally, to shake the mindsets of a lot of them. For example, Erwin Schrödinger, who says there is only one thing. That which seems a plurality is merely a series of different aspects of this one thing. The mind is infinite, eternal, and one, he says again. What we observe as material bodies and forces are nothing but shapes and variations of the structure of space. I need only mention quantum mechanical and field theories, the holofractal universe, fractal logic, non-locality, quantum biology, epigenetics, and still in the waiting room, Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance, formative causation as it's known. To realize that all of this resonates strongly with the doctrine. Here's Henry Wagner. Each universe is part of God or part of the universal mind. David Bohm. The entire universe has to be understood as a single and undivided whole. And as an aside, I should mention all the following works have theosophical trays or echoes. The Magic Flute, Mozart's The Magic Flute, Peer Gynt, Ibsen's Peer Gynt, Beethoven's Fidelio, Wagner's Ring cycle, the Lords of the Rings, the book, the series, the Lords of the Rings, the Harry Potter series, very theosophical. All of these things can have the theosophical traits in them. Now I put it to you further that a reasonable study of this material will go a long way towards answering these three great questions that have been posed since time memorial. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? And to underline that brotherhood and altruism are to be pursued at all times, subjugating the self, that is the lower self with a small s, the mortal part, to a very minor role. And to quote Mahatma Gandhi, who was a devotee of Blavatsky, you be the change that you wish to see in the world. Finally, it has been argued by many that what was unveiled in the latter part of the 19th century was a riposte, so to speak, to contemporary scientific ideas, not least Darwin's theory of biological evolution, and what seems to violate the idea of human spirituality, identity, and purpose. Thus, and I quote again from Goodrick Clark, restoring dignity and purpose to humankind's earthly life within a cosmic content. However, it cannot be said too often that reading books and listening to people, although essential at first to most of us perhaps, can only provide at best a skeletal outline. In truth, in a sense, this is expressing the inexpressible, using language to point at exactly what language can't point out. Or, to quote the philosopher John Gray, to overcome language by means of language is obviously impossible. And of course echoed or reiterated by Wittgenstein. So, what to do? Well, the answer is a paradox indeed, is to stop thinking and turn to the twin disciplines of yoga and meditation, the royal path to truth and emancipation from the flesh. And I finish with a quotation by Sean O'Casey. All the world's a stage, and most of us are desperately unrehearsed. Thank you.